Okay, let's unpack this because back in February 2026, the quiet, completely objective sanctuary of artificial intelligence got like a flashing neon sign attached
Yeah,
to it.
literally.
Right. OpenAI launched a paid advertising platform directly inside ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and it's just fundamentally rewiring our entire relationship with information.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this isn't just about, ignoring a banner ad while you browse a recipe blog. This is about the foundational trust we place in these conversational systems.
Hmm.
I mean, we're talking about a tool that millions of people treat as a neutral arbiter of facts, suddenly transforming into a highly sophisticated commercial product.
It is a massive paradigm shift. I mean, you can actually see the tension of this moment reflected in the background I've got set up today.
Yeah, I love that setup, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah. It's this hyper-modern, shifting digital cityscape, but it's constantly being interrupted by these glowing, old-school, hard-nosed neon billboards.
It perfectly sets the stakes.
Right, because it's the absolute collision of cutting-edge machine learning and traditional, relentless commercial advertising.
Exactly. And welcome to you, the learner, to today's deep dive. Whether you are using AI for high-level research or just like trying to navigate your daily workflow, our mission today is to equip you with the tools to survive this shift.
Survive is definitely the right word for it.
Yeah, so we are working through a massive stack of research today, anchored by this really comprehensive May 2026 State of Play report on the newly transformed AI landscape.
There is just so much in that report.
There is. We are going to break down exactly how this $100 million machine operates,
Right.
why it targets who it targets, and how it is fracturing the tech industry into a two-tier information system.
Well, to understand the fallout, I think we first have to map out the actual mechanics of what OpenAI has built here. Like, how does an ad even work inside a fluid conversation?
Right, because it's not a web page.
Exactly. When a user is interacting with the AI, sponsored content is now being injected into these clearly labeled bounding boxes. But the crucial design choice here is placement. These sponsored boxes appear beneath the AI's organic response, like never above it.
Wait, always beneath.
Always beneath.
Wow, okay. So they are trying to preserve the illusion that the organic answer is primary, and the ad is just like a helpful afterthought.
Yeah, but the targeting behind that afterthought is incredibly aggressive.
It's super aggressive.
They aren't just doing simple keyword matching. I mean, they are using a dynamic contextual matching engine. The system continuously scans the active conversation topic, weights it against your broader historical chat history, and then factors in any prior ad interactions you've had.
So it's looking at everything.
Everything. It calculates the semantic relevance of your current problem and matches it against an advertiser's bid in real time.
Right, and let's talk about the sheer volume of that bidding. The financial data in the report here is wild. This platform hit a $100 million annualized run rate in its first 6 weeks.
6 weeks. It's just staggering.
6 weeks. And they achieved that by essentially tearing down the velvet rope, right? Because when they first teased this, they demanded a $200,000 enterprise minimum just to experiment with the platform.
Yeah, that was the initial barrier to entry.
Now, that's gone. They rolled out a fully self-serve ads manager. Anyone with a credit card can jump in. They've got live CPM and CPC bidding running at full capacity, and cost per action models are rolling out next.
Well, the scale is really driven by who they've partnered with. They didn't just build an ad network. They plugged directly into the global advertising nervous system.
Oh, the agency integrations.
Exactly. They built deep integrations with the massive media buying conglomerates that hold the Fortune 500 budgets. We're talking agencies like Omnicom, WPP, Adobe. And they introduced this Google shopping-style catalog ingestion.
Which changes the game for retailers.
Totally. A massive global retailer doesn't have to write individual ads anymore. They just pipe their entire live inventory database directly into OpenAI's system, and then the AI automatically surfaces those specific products whenever the context aligns with the user's prompt.
I have to push back on the sheer scale and speed of this rollout, though. I mean, it feels incredibly invasive for a tool that just a year or two ago, we were treating like an oracle.
People really did revere it.
They did. It's like thinking you're having a private consultation with a world-class librarian, only to realize the librarian is occasionally slipping sponsored brochures into the books they hand you, based entirely on what they overheard you whispering. It just completely shatters that quiet neutrality.
What's fascinating here is how OpenAI has structured the physical architecture of this platform to insulate themselves from the loudest critics.
Oh, right, the tier system.
Yeah, because this commercialized, brochure slipping librarian experience, it is not for everyone.
Yeah.
The ad platform only serves impressions to the free tier and the newly introduced low-cost Go tier users. If you are paying for a Plus, Pro, Team, or Enterprise subscription, you remain entirely ad-free. Your conversational data is walled off from the contextual matching engine.
That is the dividing line right there. Your experience of reality and your privacy now depends entirely on your subscription status.
It's a literal paywall for objective truth.
Exactly. And knowing who is seeing these ads allows us to look at how this plays out in the real world. The data points to one explicitly named priority test case for this rollout, and that's real estate.
Which, honestly, real estate makes perfect sense from a machine learning and commercial perspective.
How so?
Well, it involves highly complex, multivariable discovery phases, which is exactly what people use chatbots for.
Yeah.
You're weighing schools, commute times, budgets.
It's a huge decision tree.
Exactly. So the ad formats OpenAI built specifically for real estate brokerages are deeply interactive. We are looking at multi-image property carousels embedded right in the chat flow. Yeah, a user can swipe through high-resolution photos, seeing real-time pricing, precise locations, square footage, and all of it is pulled dynamically from those brokerages' catalog feeds we talked about.
And it is designed to close the loop immediately, right?
Yeah.
Because they have embedded LED capture buttons right into the AI interface.
Endlessly.
You are, asking about property taxes, and suddenly there is a button that says schedule a viewing or contact agent attached to a specific listing.
Right there in the chat.
But this brings up a massive issue when we look at the contextual triggers. The system fires these ads based on neighborhood queries, budget planning, mortgage rate discussions, relocation planning.
All the stressful stuff.
Yeah. If we look at the target audience, the free and the go tiers, that demographic naturally skews toward younger users, first-time home buyers, and people looking for more affordable suburban properties or rentals.
That's just who uses the free version the most.
Right. So doesn't this mean the exact demographic most vulnerable to being influenced at the discovery layer of their search is the one bearing the entire brunt of this ad rollout?
Yes, absolutely. The underlying mechanism here targets the most malleable phase of human decision-making.
The discovery layer.
Right. When you are at the discovery layer, when you don't even know what questions to ask yet about buying a home, you are highly susceptible to suggestion.
Because you're just looking for guidance.
Exactly. The system is taking users who need objective, foundational financial education and feeding them into a commercial funnel under the guise of an objective conversation. It creates a remarkably high-stakes environment for the end user.
And the psychological fallout from that is immense. The report describes this as a broken psychological contract.
That's a great term for it.
For years, people treated ChatGPT as a tutor or like a sounding board. Now they're explicitly reporting that they feel shilled to.
Well, the user base was already primed for this betrayal, honestly. Before the full ad rollout, OpenAI tested the waters with those subtle app suggestions inside the chat interface.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, and even those low-stakes recommendations put users on high alert. When you realize that the machine is parsing your deeply intimate personal anxieties, like how to afford a down payment to figure out which mortgage broker to sell your attention to, the assumption of neutrality evaporates.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the immediate defense you hear from the tech industry is, so what? We see ads on Google all the time. How is this any different?
They love making that comparison.
They do, but the mechanics of the interface change everything. A Google search ad sits clearly at the top of a page. You execute a search, you retrieve data, you see the sponsored links, and you scroll past them.
It's just a billboard on a highway.
Exactly. It is a transactional retrieval of information. But a chatbot is a dialogue. Placing a sponsored link inside a conversational flow fundamentally violates the user's trust in a way a search engine doesn't, because a conversation implies a relationship, a back-and-forth collaboration.
That is the critical distinction. A conversational interface intentionally mimics human empathy.
Yes.
So when it suddenly tries to monetize you, it feels manipulative. But beyond the emotional reaction, the most sophisticated machine learning researchers are pointing to a mechanical flaw this introduces. They call it the invisible hand problem, or recommendation drift.
Oh, let's get into that. Break down the mechanics of that drift. Like, how does an ad actually break the AI?
So, OpenAI claims there is a strict church and state wall between their ad servers and the neural network generating the organic text.
Right, they say the ad team can't touch the model.
The ad team cannot manually override the AI's answers. However, large language models learn through reinforcement learning from human feedback. Exactly. They constantly optimize their internal weights based on what users engage with. If millions of users start clicking on sponsored real estate carousels, the system registers that engagement as a successful interaction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The fear is that the model's underlying algorithms will gradually, subtly drift toward generating organic responses that mirror the highly engaging, commercially successful sponsored content, simply because the machine is mathematically desperate to maximize engagement.
So it starts acting like an ad even when it's not showing an ad,
Exactly. The commercial pressure invisibly warps the organic output.
which introduces a brilliant concept from the analysis ads as a weakness signal.
Yes, I love this concept. In the architecture of an AI model, authority generates citation.
Right.
An LLM is designed to synthesize the most robust, verifiable, and authoritative sources on the internet. A genuinely authoritative entity, like a phenomenal local realtor or a definitive civic guide to a neighborhood, does not need to buy its way into the AI's output.
Because the AI already knows they're the best.
The AI will naturally surface them because their earned authority demands it.
So the presence of the ad implies a lack of authority.
Mechanically, yes. A sponsored placement means the advertiser had to bypass the AI's rigorous citation logic.
They bought their way in.
They are paying to skip the line because their underlying data wasn't strong enough to earn an organic recommendation. Paying for visibility is a mathematical tell that you couldn't make the cut on your own merits.
That completely flips how you interact with sponsored content.
It really does.
It isn't just a helpful suggestion. It is a giant red flag that the product failed the AI's internal quality test.
Yes, exactly.
Now, as user trust fractures over this recommendation drift and this inherent weakness signal, the rest of the AI industry is watching closely, and they aren't just sitting still. They're weaponizing this trust deficit.
Oh, it has triggered an industry-wide identity crisis. It's splitting the market based entirely on how a company handles commercial influence. Anthropic, for example, took the most aggressive counterposition.
Right, the Claude models.
Yes. They have explicitly architected their Claude models to be the premium, uncorrupted alternative. They even ran that massive Super Bowl campaign directly attacking the concept of AI advertising.
That was a huge statement.
It was. They are funding their operations entirely through enterprise subscriptions and back-end developer access, drawing a very bold line in the sand.
They are essentially selling trust as their primary feature. But not everyone can afford to just say no to ad revenue. Look at Perplexity.
The AI search guys.
Yeah, they're a massive player in the AI search space, and they actually tried to walk this line. They tested an ad integration in early 2026.
And their retreat from that test is one of the strongest market signals we have.
They pulled back so fast.
They ran the data, looked at the user retention metrics, and realized the math just didn't work. The long-term cost of eroding user trust vastly outweighed the short-term spike in ad revenue. They pulled the plug and pivoted back to an organic, subscription-based model.
And then there's the elephant in the room, Google.
Oh, Google.
They are caught in a trap of their own making here. What are they doing with Gemini?
Well, Google is paralyzed by their own massive search monopoly. Currently, the standalone Gemini chatbot is ad-free, but their AI overviews, those AI-generated summaries, dominating traditional Google search results, are heavily saturated with ads.
Because they have to protect that search revenue.
We have to protect their core revenue, yeah.
Yeah.
And critically, Google executives are explicitly refusing to rule out bringing ads into the standalone Gemini interface in the near future. It might be ad-free today, but structurally, Google cannot abandon the advertising model.
Which leaves one final crucial category for anyone looking to escape the billboards altogether: local and open source models.
This is where architecture dictates reality. If you are running an open source model locally on your own hardware, it is 100% ad-free.
It has to be.
Right. But this isn't a corporate policy or a moral stance. It is just physics. A local model lacks a centralized ad server to connect to. There is no pipeline to feed its sponsored bids.
So what does this all mean? When you zoom out and look at the whole board OpenAI gating the clean experience behind a paywall, Anthropic charging a premium for trust, and local models requiring expensive personal hardware, you are looking at the birth of a stark two-tier information environment.
That's the reality.
If you have the capital to afford a Plus, Pro, Team, or Enterprise subscription, you are buying the privilege of objective, uncorrupted reality. If you are on the free tier, your baseline truth comes bundled with sponsored baggage.
Access to unmanipulated, objective reasoning at the discovery layer of a problem is rapidly becoming a luxury commodity. The internet has always had ads, but we are moving from sponsored links to sponsored logic.
And because this two-tier system is the reality on the ground right now, we have to talk about workflow for the learner.
Right. How do you actually use this stuff?
Yeah. If you are using the free or ad-supported tiers, you have to develop a new muscle memory for what the research calls spotting the seams. You literally have to train your eye.
Visual cues are your first line of defense. Remember the mechanics we talked about. The ad always generates after the organic response. Do not treat the final paragraph of an output as a summary. Treat it with extreme suspicion.
Good rule of thumb.
Look for the mandatory labels. They will say sponsored or ad, but they are intentionally designed to blend in. They often use lighter typography tucked into a corner,
They want your brain to glaze right over it.
which is why you have to look for structural anomalies. The AI interface will subtly shift. Watch for slight tinting in the background color of a specific text block or a rigid border treatment that separates an ad card from the fluid text of the conversation.
The UI changes.
Yeah, and the most glaring telecommerce features. Artificial intelligence does not organically generate shop now buttons, product catalogs, or lead capture forms.
Right, it writes text.
Exactly. If an interactive commerce element appears, you are interacting with a paid placement, period.
But spotting the visual seams isn't enough, right? You have to spot the behavioral seams. You have to watch out for contextual drift.
This is the sneaky part.
It really is.
Yeah.
Let's say you are having a high-level educational chat about how property taxes are calculated in a specific county. If the AI suddenly pivots, without you prompting it, to say, by the way, here are 3 properties matching your implied budget, the conversational integrity is gone.
Totally gone.
A paid placement algorithm has hijacked the interface. When that happens, you have to actively engage your critical thinking. You must ask yourself, where exactly did this recommendation originate? Who specifically paid for me to see this right now?
Those are the crucial questions.
And critically, what better, more authoritative answer is missing from my screen right now simply because someone else outbid them for this digital real estate?
This raises an important question about how we fundamentally value our decisions in this new landscape.
Yeah.
The practical workflow isn't to just throw your computer out the window and never use AI again.
That's not realistic.
No, it's about understanding the stakes of the prompt you are writing. Ad-supported AI tools are phenomenal for low-stakes breadth. If you need a quick recipe or you want a summary of a historical event or you need help debugging a generic piece of code, the presence of a sponsored ad isn't going to materially damage your life.
Right. If I'm asking for a chicken parm recipe and it slips in a sponsored link for a brand of pasta sauce, my cognitive liberty remains intact.
Exactly. But you have to draw a hard line for high-stakes decisions. If you are choosing a school district, evaluating the safety metrics of a neighborhood, selecting a medical specialist, or deciding on a $500,000 real estate purchase, you cannot rely on an ad-supported layer of logic.
Too risky.
Far too risky. You must verify the AI's output against a clean, ad-free source. Pay for a single month of a premium tier, cross-reference the data with a local open-source model, or just revert to manual verification. The negligible cost of that friction is the only way to guarantee you are acting on a recommendation earned by merit rather than one placed by the highest bidder.
It is a totally new way to navigate the internet. We have covered incredible ground today. We started with the sheer financial velocity of that February 2026 rollout, breaking down how the live bidding mechanism actually interrupts the AI's logic.
Yeah.
We explored the specific targeting of vulnerable discovery phase demographics in massive verticals like real estate. We broke down the mechanics of recommendation drift and how commercial pressure warps organic output.
The invisible hand.
Right. And we mapped out how the entire industry is splitting, creating a world where objective truth is a premium subscription-only feature.
It is a profound structural change to how humans access knowledge. And as we wrap up, there is one final dynamic to consider.
Let's hear it.
We noted earlier that local open source models are architecturally immune to these ad servers. As massive cloud-based AI becomes increasingly segmented by wealth and saturated with invisible commercial pressures and relentless contextual targeting, the definition of premium technology is going to invert.
Oh, that's interesting.
Will the ultimate luxury in the future not be having access to the absolute most powerful, massive corporate cloud AI, but rather the freedom to run a slightly less powerful but entirely uncorrupted open source model entirely locally on your own private hardware?
Wow. The quiet neutrality of the library might only survive if you build the library yourself in your own home. To you, the learner, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. As you use these tools this week, keep your eyes open, keep spotting those visual and behavioral seams, and never stop questioning the invisible logic shaping the information landscape around you. We will see you next time.